Thanks, everybody. Hey, thanks for coming today, and for all of you who are uncomfortable, I hope I won't keep you uncomfortable for too long. I really appreciate it. I want to talk about speeding the journey to from content to cash. I most recently had a job at Tell Labs where 13 years I was the CMO. And our content program last year was one of the finalists in the Content Marketing Awards. And what I'm going to do is share with you, how did we get there? How did we make sure that the content really turned into cash, and how can you speed that flow? Recently, I left Tell Labs, and that was to start up my own business. What I'm working on is insights and inventive answers for B2B companies, particularly tech and telecom. So my focus is really going to be around that audience. The first thing we got to get right is mindset. I think what's wrong with most content is still mindset. Laura Ramos at Forrester recently did look at 30 B2B websites. 80% of them only talk about themselves. They don't talk about the customer's questions, answers, worries, needs, none of that. They tell you about the product. And that's really just not going to work going forward. I think in content there's going to be one big winner, and there's going to be some also-rans. So if you don't have the biggest budget and can't buy the most ads, and you don't have the best content, you're kind of going to be screwed. You really want to play this in terms of, how am I going to have the best content in my area? And the way to do that is see through your customer's eyes. Let's take a retail customer. A customer walks into a hardware store, has a problem or a need, okay? What's usually going to happen in that store? She will be ignored. Nobody's going to pay any attention to her at all. She may be looking at stuff that she's interested in, but she's not going to get any help in a Lowe's or a Home Depot, right? Nobody's going to walk up and try to help her out. Maybe in a smaller store, though, she'll get some attention. And somebody who figures out, what are the questions that are really the key questions here? What are the worries that you would have? If you're going to buy this $1,000 gas grill here, okay, is my husband going to like it? How does this thing work, right? How hard is it to put together? Does it come assembled or not? There's a lot of questions that you have. And the key thing for content marketers is figure out what those questions are. Capture those. Get those now. In fact, I want to capture a question from you right now. So I'm going to ask you to take a piece of paper, please, and write down what is the one thing you want to know the most about how to convert from content to cash. Give me your top question. Just write it down right now, please. And write your email with that, so that if I don't answer your question during my presentation or the Q&A today, I will write you back and give you an answer. What is your one question about content to cash? Okay, if you'll take and pass those down in this direction, what we'll do is collect them and take a look at them and make sure all your questions get addressed. And that's really key. One of the things that Jakob Nielsen, the usability expert, looked at is when a customer comes to a site, even when they don't find any content about themselves, 20% of the time they don't find enough information about the product they want to buy is available on the site. We're just not telling them enough about what they want to know. And what does that mean? That means they go back to Google and they go to your competitor. His estimate is that about half your sales are lost because the product information is inadequate, because it's not answering the questions that the customer actually had. So whenever you get the opportunity at a trade show, at a customer event, get the questions. Get them from sales, get them from your distributor, get them from services. Get the customer questions. It's the most valuable thing you have in terms of starting on the right path. You've got to understand the buyer's journey from their viewpoint. It's a very risky thing, right? And I liken it to crossing a river on stepping stones. You know, think about how that feels when you look at that first stepping stone. You're wondering, should I start this? Yes or no? It's risky. I'm standing here on dry ground. Everything's cool, right? That rock looks like it might be loose. That one's got a weird angle. Well, that's what it's like to go through a long B2B technology purchase, because it can take 18 months, 24 months to make a decision. There's 20 people on the committee, all of whom have some say, and one decision maker, and that decision maker, if he screws up, it could cost him his job. He's taken really high risk. I'm talking about the kinds of sales that are hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of dollars. There's a lot of risk. So when we look at the buyer's journey, we really have to look at it in terms of how do they think about it. And there's risk at each step. We need to understand the step. For one thing, they hesitate to take each step. They question whether they need to. Maybe the status quo is okay. Maybe I don't need to make a change. Maybe I don't need to cross the water and go to the other side. They want specific kinds of content each step of the way. And we're going to cover what kind of content that is for B2B buyers. And finally, we make their job too hard. I think on most websites, digital properties, we don't give buyers a clear path to purchase. We don't line up the stepping stones in such a way that they know I do 1, then I do 2, then I do 3, then I do 4, and I'm going to buy the thing, right? We miss steps. And I would say this is true even for the content we did at Tell Labs. We were stronger on some steps than others, and sometimes we asked our buyers to make too big a leap. So I'm going to break down the sales process and the buying process into 4 steps. There's only 4 things a buyer needs to do. First of all, recognize, do I have a need? If I don't have a need, I'm not going to do anything else. Then evaluate the options. And I'm probably going to go to Google and I'm going to go all around the web. But when I land on your site, am I going to find out enough to get this done? Then I'm going to resolve concerns. So let's say that I find a company I've never heard of before, I've never done business with. How do I know you're okay? I got to check you out. You know, I may trust, but I'm going to verify. And then finally, the buyer's going to negotiate a contract. Now let's talk about the content you need for each step of this. Step 1, customer saying, do I have a problem? Is it serious? Do I really have to do something? Nobody wants to do anything they don't have to do. Do I need to change? And this is a beautiful moment for content marketers, because this is your moment to magnify the problem. Make the problem as big as you can make it, okay? Make sure they understand every bad thing that's going to happen if they don't take action. What are the consequences? How horrible is it going to be? What's it going to cost them in terms of money and time? And competitiveness, especially competitiveness. People hate to think that they're behind their competitor. So in step 1, the most important job you do, help the buyer diagnose the problem. Help them understand the problem. Help them magnify the problem. Make it big. And there's specific content. This comes from an Ecolo media study from 2014. Here's what they want to get. They want blogs, infographics, videos, white papers. Do you offer those things addressing that first set of concerns? That's what you want to do. Okay, at the second step, the customer's starting to think about what are all the options that I have and how do I compare these guys? Did I want the best service? Did I want the cheapest price? Do I want the highest performance? Can you prove to me you have the highest performance? How can you show me that you do the best service? How can you show me that, well, maybe you don't have the lowest price at first, over the life cycle of the purchase you have the lowest price. So all of those jobs are about differentiation. In this step, you've got to differentiate your content, and you've got to differentiate your offering. How is it truly different from the other guys? Couple levels of this. First of all, do you have a page where it's easy for me to see the 10 things you sell that address my problem and compare them with each other? So that I can say, look, this is the one I probably ought to do. And then, do you have a page that compares it with your competitors? Because ultimately, your customer is going to go do that anyway. They can either do it on your site or on somebody else's site. It's your call. You want to do it on your site. And this is a hard thing to talk executives into, but they have to understand that's what the buyer's going to do. This is the buyer's journey. It is not the seller's journey. And they want to see similar things, blogs, videos, white papers, case studies. Now we're getting into longer form content. The later it gets in the buy, the more detail they want. And it's more true for the influencers than the decision maker. This is a set of data that I'm giving you on the decision makers. The influencers want the heavy content even earlier, because if it's somebody they know and they don't like, they're going to try to shoot down that guy before he gets on the short list. They're going to try to take that guy out before the next step of the process. And in step 3, this is where the question is really, do I trust you? And the answer is, I'm not going to believe anything you tell me. I'm only going to believe the third parties. I'm going to believe other customers who have told their stories. I'm going to go do site visits and see, where is this installed? How's it working? Is everybody happy with it? I'm going to listen to what industry analysts have to say about it. I trust you, but I'm verifying. And I'm going to verify best with a third party. Customers are going to look for a customer like them. Same industry, same location. If you want to sell to a hospital in Chicago, they want to see another hospital in Chicago that has your product. They're really specific about this. And to the extent you can do that, you want to make sure customers can tell their stories on your website. And now they're looking for even deeper information: case studies, white papers, technical guides, detailed technical guides. Finally, we're getting to a contract signing. And the customer is thinking about terms and conditions. There's still a job for content to do. 2 things. 1, reinforce the decision that they're about to make. They're about to make a really good call they're going to buy from you, right? Help remind them why that's a good call. Second thing, are there things that you can cross-sell or upsell that go with that? You buy the car, should you buy the upgrade package? Here, the interest in content starting to scale down, though. 22% of the buyers are saying, I want infographics or technical guides. But buyers do say that even after the buy, they want to continue to receive content. So this is never over. We go back to step 1 and start again. Now, this is a bit of an eye chart, and I'm going to share this with you as a printed handout. Okay, so you're going to get a handout here in a little bit. And it'll have this information about what are the things the buyer does, what are the things marketing needs to do, what's the media format that you want to serve it up in. And on the back there's a bonus, which are some questions, some thought starters, to get you thinking and help you get to some bold insights and some inventive answers. You're all doing content already. How can you make it better? How can you get more money out of it? Don't make buyers wade through a bunch of content that's all about you. They just don't want to hear it. It's like no stones in the river and I got to cross the river. Really? Come on. I'm not going to do that. Don't give them too many choices. I think a lot of sites do this. You get on the site and it's like, oh my God, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I find that next thing? I have no idea. Don't make buyers jump around. I think a lot of companies are good at having stage 3 content, where here's the third parties, here's my happy customers talking about it. And they're good at stage 2 content on differentiating, and they got nothing in stage 1. And if you don't have anything in stage 1 and your competitor does, they're going to start the process there. They're going to stick with that site as long as they can. So don't make your buyers jump around. Think about the 4 steps. The clearer you make the path, the easier and more even, the sooner you're going to get to money. That's really how it works. Think about it that way. Now, to get there, you have to have the right set of content skills and tools. And I'm going to share with you the minimum viable set. I think there's a minimum viable set that we have to have in order to be successful. First of all, the skills. This is what your team has to be able to do. And it doesn't mean your internal team. If you have a gap in these skills, you can fill in with somebody from the outside. And you can get somebody who will bring you a fresh perspective. And if you're an agency working from the outside and your clients don't have all this, those are the gaps that you can address. Those are the opportunities for you. So yes, you've got to tell stories. You've got to be able to interview experts and customers and internal people. Writing, editing, photos, video, design. You've got to have good analytics because your analytics keep telling you how to make your program better. And we used to use a cadence of once a month. We would look at all our analytics, everything going on social media, everything on our website and our apps, and figure out how do we make it better next month. The in-between step is hypothesize about why did it do that. It did this. A lot of times you'll have the number, but you won't exactly know why. So the more granular your analytics are, the better answers you're going to have. And finally, you've got to have somebody who does demand gen. So that's the person who keeps track of the lead generation process, decides what is a marketing qualified lead, hands it to sales, and follows it up. Because if you don't do that, you can't track your results, and the results are what really matters. In terms of tools, there's a set of tools I think you need to have. This is your minimum viable toolkit. And first of all, a one-page plan. And I say a one-page plan because executives cannot pay attention for longer than one page. And this has been true for 20 years. This isn't new. You know, a goldfish has a 9-second attention span, and an executive is not far from there. Unless you get him in the first 7 seconds. You've really got to get him. So boil it down to one page. There's a lot of other people here who can talk about personas, calendar, automation, analytics. I'm not going to cover that. But what I will touch on is one-page plans, stories and heroes, and a message map. And these are all tools that help you get your job done. So this is a one-page plan. It's on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I blew it up here so you could see it. This is Tellab's plan for the optical LAN product. And we had a very clear mission at the top, which is simply to be the best source of information on optical LANs. And we had a list of things we needed to educate our readers on. How to address their technology and business challenges, how to identify the trends that were going to affect them, educate them on generating revenue, reducing expense, improving user experience, and then deliver useful information, thought-provoking insights, resources, and relief. The thought-provoking insights are really important. What is it you can tell your customer about a risk or an opportunity that they have, but they didn't know they have? If they hear about this first from you, they're going to spend more time on the buyer's journey with you because you told them something nobody else could tell them. So really work on what is that thought-provoking content. There's a book called The Challenger Sale I would recommend you all get and look at because it's all about how you upset the customer's sense of status quo and get them to take action rather than just hear your information. Here's the second part of the plan. It's about who we serve and what's in it for the audience. And what's in it for the audience is the most important thing. We're going to bring you ideas that lead to greater success for you and your company. So we knew we were advocating for two people, the IT buyer who's going to decide what kind of local area network to buy, and the company or organization that they work for. So what are the topics we're going to talk about? It's really user and technology trends that affect their business, and then customer stories. Heavy on the customer stories, because customers want to read about people like them. And when customers tell the story, it's way more believable than when the marketer tells the story. So what we were doing was very specific agenda, comparing our performance, reach, cost, security of our LAN with the traditional LAN that 99% of people still have, and also to promote an industry association that was behind the optical LAN. I got really granular about serving sizes. I think this is important because of the 9-second attention span of a goldfish and the 8-second attention span of an American. Okay, goldfish have longer attention spans than Americans. So you've got to be able to pack your whole message into 23 words or less, 7 seconds. And that's going to be a headline, a tweet, a soundbite in a media story. Could be a cartoon. We ran New Yorker cartoons in our magazine, and people loved them. That was paying off our promise of relief. A 2-minute window, 400 words or so. That's a web page, a blog, a news release, videos, infographics, right? A 5-page installment. So now we're getting up to a magazine article, a contributed article, maybe a long video. That's a longish video, long time to ask people to watch. And finally, the long form, that the influencers need more and that the buyers need more at the end of the journey. So that could be 4,000 words or more. We're asking them for 20 minutes of their lives. At that point, they're pretty serious. But if they're going to be spending tens of millions of dollars, they're willing to put in that time. Calls to action, we had 2 forms of it on our site. One is soft and one is hard. So soft conversion is if you came to the site, you watched a video, read a blog, read a magazine article, or registered, went through a gate for our white paper. And that's a soft conversion. When we started at Tellabs, we were getting soft conversions around 10% when we rebuilt our website with this specifically in mind. And then we had hard conversions, which is when you register for that white paper, you go into the demand funnel, you go into our marketing automation, we start to see what you're looking at while you're on the site. These are the results that we got. And I want to keep them real simple because I never had success in sharing complex results with executives in particular, okay? We had fights about almost every one of these things, and stupid fights a lot of times. So website traffic was up 30%. in 2013 versus 2012. So nice growth in our website traffic off a big base. Our soft conversions, which had started in the tens and teens, went up to 46%. So almost half of our buyers were taking the next step, looking at that next thing, and we're moving them along. Our brand value increased by $78 million last year, about 288%. Here's one where you're going to get in a debate with your chief financial officer. He's going to say, well, how did you do that? Well, I didn't do that. Brand Finance did that, and they did it according to UK generally accepted accounting principles. He didn't trust that either. He got a couple directors in his department to go run their methodology to ground and find out that, yeah, it's actually a real thing. Brand value is a good one because it captures a lot of the intangibles. It's the net present value of your future cash flows. So it really represents your buyer's intention to buy from you in the future. So look at brand value. Sales pipeline. How big a sales pipeline were we able to generate with demand gen? We were able to get up to 20 million. And revenue, in this year we did $3 million in revenue versus a target of 1 million. You have to keep reminding them what the target was so that if you overperform that, you can increase the budget that you're going to get next year. And I think the results need to boil down to categories like these. Now I have a quiz for you. Who is the hero of your content marketing? Anybody? Customers, consumers, absolutely right. It's not your product, it's not your brand, it's not your company, it's not the brilliant geniuses behind it, it's your customer. Excellent. Make your customers into heroes and think in terms of a story chart. This story formula is borrowed from Jonas Sachs' book, Winning the Story Wars. Go read that one. That one's also awesome. And what he talks about is the hero's journey as Joseph Campbell described it. Okay, and you know, some of Joseph Campbell's fingerprints were left on Star Wars because he worked with George Lucas. And the insight that is strong here is that you're not the hero and you don't even want to be. You want to be the mentor. You're not Luke Skywalker, you're Yoda. Okay? You go to Luke and you say, even though you don't want to do this thing, here I have a magic thing for you. This is my product. And with this, you can change the world. That's the story you want to be telling. And I would say 99% of brands never figure this out. So if you do this, you'll be way ahead of your competitors. People are very slow. IBM's doing it. Apple's doing it. Very few others in the B2B space. Be really cognizant of where your story's going. So if I'm going to get out on those stepping stones, I want to see there's something on the other side worth having, right? So how are you going to get me out there? And one way that we do that is with a message map. So this is the whole presentation I'm giving you today, boiled down to about 30 words. It's about 11 seconds. So if you want to speed the buyer's journey, see through customers' eyes, clear the buyer's path, apply the right skills and tools, cast your content in the right role, and create a content culture. So now let me show you a little more complicated message map that we used in the business. Here's our 7-second message. This is our optical land message. And when we're tweeting, we know exactly what we're going to go tweet about. It's going to be some variant on that part of the message. If we go 2 minutes, we're going to take one branch off the tree and we're going to talk about that. If we're going to go 5 minutes, we have a lot more room. We're going to get into greater detail. And finally, if we go 20 minutes, that's how it is. Now, we did the same thing with our message map for segments. So for the green buyer, for the IT guy, for the librarian who headed the library, those messages were all a little bit different. They all fit on one piece of paper. This is 11 by 17. I can cheat the size of the paper, okay? But it needs to be on one page so that everybody's aboard. Everybody in sales, everybody in product, everybody in distribution knows the message, can deliver it consistently, understands why we're doing the content we're doing. Think about the role your content plays in your customer's life. I think there's a lot of ways that marketers show up, and there's 4 that are really valuable for content marketers. First of all, you can show up as a guru. And when I think of the marketing industry, this is a Seth Godin. This is a Sally Hogshead, who's so far out ahead of everybody else that you listen and you go, wow, they got a vision of the future, they're going in the right direction, I have no idea how to implement that, you know, but I admire it and I'm going to follow that direction. So a guru is one way to position. Another way is a guide. If I get into whitewater and I don't know what I'm doing, boy, I need a guide. Okay, because it's going to be rough. And this is somebody who's with me, maybe a step ahead of me, but is more practical in terms of the information I'm going to get. How to hold the paddle, how to not fall out of the boat, okay? Help me with the things I need to know right now. Think about partners. A lot of brands set up as a partner or friend relationship where you're kind of going together through a process or an experience. So that's another way to show up, and it's a valuable way to show up. I think about the Amex Open Forum site, for example, where small business persons are talking to each other, giving each other advice. That's an awesome site for a partner. And finally, there's a helper. This is someone who does what you tell them to do. And I think in terms of banks and shipping companies in this area. But think about what's the role you expect your content to play in your customer's life. Are you a guru, guide? Are you a partner or a helper? Get everybody in the company involved. These are actual people from Tell Labs, all holding up their cell phones and iPads and everything else. We were selling solutions for the smart mobile internet. And we literally got everybody involved. How do you do that? You got to start at the top. The first thing to do is one-on-one training with your executives on social media skills. They're scared of social media. They don't know what it is. It's something their kids did. They're embarrassed to let anybody else know that, so you got to do it one-on-one. When IBM trained people for social media one-on-one, they found that 3 out of 4 people actually went on successfully and got to use social media. When you trained in groups, the success rate was about 1 out of 11. Okay, and that's worse for execs because they're too embarrassed to let anybody know they don't know. Now, the thing you got to give back to the execs is what's the revenue, what's the customers? They don't really care about that other stuff. I know we care and we need to know so we can do the diagnosis, but what matters to them, as the CEO said to me, when you come in my office, there's a penny on your head. And it's either going to be a penny of expense or it's going to be a penny of revenue. Which are you bringing me? Okay, so think of it in those terms. That's all they care about, and that's what they should care about. Now, working with sales, help them with their social selling skills. There's a lot of upside for them, and a lot of times they don't know how to do it. And this has involved things like sitting with the head of sales in his office and showing him how to cut and paste into LinkedIn. Yes, I will do that. I will do whatever it takes to make sure that sales is absolutely successful. Once the execs at the top of sales do it, all the other guys in sales are going to follow along. Capture from them what are the customer's questions, really important. What are the worries? What are the problems that they have? Your R&D team, your research and development or product team is also a really good source. What you can do for them is help them learn to blog and post and speak at conferences, and they love that. They really do. It is so wonderful to go back to an engineer and say, that blog we wrote you last week, it's had 1,200 readers. They're blown away. They never expected 1,200 readers. They had no context for it. So help them out, and what they can help you with is not only the product specs, but what's the competitive landscape, what's going to be next in that area that's going to be the leapfrog to put the company ahead. Finally, there's all your employees who can serve as ambassadors to buyers, but you have to work on their social media skills, and you're not usually going to be able to do them one-on-one. So help them understand why they want to build a personal brand in social media, and then make it easy for them to share content with other people. When we did this at Tell Labs, we were able to extend our social media reach by 3x or 4x because our top people had a lot more followers than the company did. So this is all about the buyer's journey. It's all about seeing it through the eyes of your customers. That's the mindset that you need to have. It's about understanding the steps that they have to take. What are the questions on their mind? What media do they want to see the answer in? It's about having the skills and tools, and if you don't have them internally, pulling in the resources that you need to get that done. And it's about getting everybody involved in content. Really everybody. And content that plays the right role. Be clear, are we trying to be a guru, a guide, a partner, a helper? Which are we trying to be? Let's show up in a consistent way and with a voice that fits that. And with that, I'll take your questions. We can pass out this handout now, and if we could do that and gather in your questions you had earlier, then we'll go there. And
We've got about 15 minutes for questions, so
Good.
quite a bit. I'm going to pass things around, and if you've got a hand, raise it, and I'll bring the microphone to you.
Question, how large is Tell Labs?
Tell Labs is about $1 billion in revenue company.
No, I mean number of employees, sorry.
Was about 2,000.
2,000.
Yeah,
So I'm at Dell with 110,000 people.
it's a lot more people.
It is?
Yeah. So how do you scale it? You have to train the trainers and have the trainers maybe train trainers who go out to people.
So how long was your journey in terms of creating a culture of content?
You know what? When I arrived at Tellabs in the year 2000, we already had been doing content marketing, but we didn't know it. We had a great customer magazine, but it was overly promotional. And we hadn't figured out yet how to use the magazine to tell customer stories. So we had deep roots in this. The Tellabs Insight magazine is about 30 years old.
Okay, and so then do you have a window of time where you took it from content to cash? The number of years?
Yeah. So the number of years to get to 3 million took us 2 years. And there's some wobble in there. Let me tell you how this happened. So I go to my CEO and I go, look, we got all this great content. We're not getting enough cash out of it. I need to hire one more guy, demand gen guy. And he goes, okay, if I hire that guy, how much money are you going to bring me? And out of the air, I said, I'll bring you $1 million. Okay, pulled it out of the air. That was how this conversation went. And we got somebody in there. We were able to do 2 million the first year, 3 million the second year. And the problem with it and the opportunity with it is like this. Our average sale took 18 months to close.
Right.
So if you think about it, you're putting the money in and the investment in, and you're trying to like harvest from the apple tree when it's still a sapling.
You can't do it in a quarter?
No, usually you can't do it in a quarter, but here's what we did. We went to a segment of our market where they made faster decisions. So
Okay.
instead of selling our gear to phone companies, we sold it to electric utilities. Electric utilities can make a decision in 3 to 6 months. Phone companies take 18 to 24. We put a lot of weight in electric utilities the first year because you have to have quick wins.
Very helpful. Last question is, how big is the team that did that over 2 years?
That team was about 8 people.
Thanks.
Real quick while I walk over here, how many of you by show of hands have a less than 6 month sales cycle?
Yeah.
Not very many.
You guys are lucky.
How many
I
of you are
envy
18 months or longer sales cycle?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of this investment is a difficult thing to measure quickly.
Yeah, look for low-hanging fruit. Look for adjacent markets where they haven't really been penetrated. The thing that was amazing about the 3 million was most of that came from people who had never done business with us before, but they found our content and they came all the way in. Go ahead.
Thank you. The question I have is on that 3 million. Is that recurring? Do you see next year you're going to have a 3 million base and you're going to build on that, or do you start from scratch? Tell me a little bit about your experience in that.
Okay, I think the 3 million is actually only about half of the actual capture, and here's why. Our guy who did demand gen, we unfortunately were not able to get funding for a CRM system. So we couldn't follow that through. We had to follow through manually every single lead, okay? We heard back from about 50% of the sales leads that went out there. So with 50% of precincts reporting, we knew we got $3 million. I suspect we got another 3 million, but a real bad thing happened. This is real stuff. This really happens. In a meeting with the CEO and the CFO and the head of sales, the first time I showed them the money, you know, they look at it and the CFO turns to the head of sales and he goes, so, Roger, why do we need all these salespeople anyway? And of course, Roger, my boss, gets defensive. Okay, and he doesn't like this. This has now become a threat to him. This has become a horrible thing. I made sure the next time I presented, I had the name of the salesperson who closed the deal next to every single deal. I got that granular. People, it's wrong to think about either sales or content. It's the two of them working together. So bad things can happen when you share these results. And was the 3 million really 6? I suspect it was more because of that 18 to 24 month product cycle. And can I prove it? No. But 3 million was more than sufficient to prove in the investment we made.
Do you expect to build off of that base? And if 3 million was where you were, say, in 2013, are you adding $3 million in net new demand?
Tellabs has that opportunity. I'm not with them anymore, so whether they do that is really up to the current administration.
Got it.
Who else over here?
Oh, by the way, I'll just mention, I gave you the eye chart on the front. On the back, there's 50 questions to start the right discussion in your company or with your clients. So these questions are the ones to ask to really start to zoom in on what do you need to do in that step of the buyer's journey, and take advantage of that. If you have other ideas, send them to me. I'll put them in. Yes,
Hi, this is really cool. Thank you.
thank you.
What are the methods that you use to get the salespeople in the follow-up process when you're passing over those leads that are qualified and they're going to make that first phone call? What kinds of insights do you teach them how to use so that they're having an intelligent conversation instead of, oh, I see you attended that webinar. I guess you're ready to buy.
Yeah. We went strongly with risk aversion because I've done this with different sales forces and different companies over time. And what we learned is you could never afford for a salesperson to get 3 leads that were not good. Okay? So what we did was we kind of choked the end of the pipeline. We got 10,000 inquiries in per year, of which about 6,000 looked pretty good, and we would hand less than 1,000 to sales. So they were seeing less than 1 in 10 things. So we really made sure they were highly qualified leads, because what we had to have happen in sales was for a sales guy to turn to the other sales guy and go, hey, that lead that I got from them was good. That's not the usual dialogue. Usually what it is they sent me 10 leads, I called 3 of them, they're all crap. Those guys are idiots over there in marketing, right? So I went very risk averse, and what we did was over time we opened up the pipeline. But I think the hardest part of that is the handoff from what is a marketing qualified lead, you think it's good, to what is a sales qualified lead. And if I were going to put focus in a specific step, it would be that. Make sales actually reply that yes, that was a good one, or no, that was a bad one. Because the grapevine of no will kill you.
Do you mind if I make a quick comment on that one? Because I think that's excellent. One of the things that I've heard somebody else do that's really good on this is, just like you're saying, make them reply. We have ours reply on 2 different levels. One, is it going into the sales pipeline, or do you want to own this and work it? But then also, do you want us to send more like this to you? So we have an accepted and a staged opportunity. So if you want to send more like this, even if you've been making your sales pipeline, tell us that, and then we can judge better. That's been helpful.
So what questions did you write down that I didn't answer yet?
So how do you integrate? So when you have siloed content across vertical industries, horizontal themes from a business standpoint, and product portfolios from a customer perspective, when they hit your site, there's a lot of content that is very siloed, set up how you are as an organization. How do you integrate that?
I would do everything I could to track the footprints of the people who were on the site and take them directly to the content that's relevant to them first. So if you have marketing automation employed and you can see who they are, and you know that what they buy are conveyor belts for warehouses, okay? Next time they come back to your site, that's all they should see. They shouldn't have to wade through a sea of content to find the one thing that's relevant to them. So that is how I would try to address it. And I know that can be really complicated. The other thing to do in that situation is go find somebody who really needs help and has the low-hanging fruit and make them successful so that everybody else wants it. One of the hardest things to do is create that demand for content marketing, but if you take a little bitty business unit that's been suffering and you do something for them that's amazing, they're going to go tell everybody else, and then everybody will want some of your magic potion. But that's a hard one to solve.
Other questions?
Any
Right
other
here.
questions? Did I really answer all the questions that you guys wrote down?
So
Okay.
do you really have any experience or heard stories of selling this to a small and medium enterprise? All that you're saying is for medium and large enterprises where patience is there, all the infrastructure is there, but especially in markets like India, I'm from India, small enterprises don't have neither the patience nor the infrastructure. So what's your...
So I have small clients that are startups that have no revenue yet, okay, and they don't have the money to spend on marketing. So what do we focus on? We focus on getting the plan right, that one-page plan and the message map, and where we start is with sales. So sales goes out, and that's the message they tell. And we figure out a way to magnify that problem for stage 1, to get the differentiation that you're going to need for stage 3. In a startup, you're screwed. Stage 3, you got no customers. You've got to go out and win some customers who can become reference customers, okay? So start where you are. Start where you are. Make a plan, make a message. The other stuff can come later. Try to line up your assets with that. And then as there's money available, you know, find the low-hanging fruit and pick that. Go get that. You need wins so that people go on with the next step. That's what I would try to do.
I think I saw a hand over here on this side a minute ago. There it is.
Yes.
A couple of them.
So one of the points that you raised earlier was on measurement of
Yeah.
success, and you listed web traffic
Yeah.
as kind of one of those. Now, with a company, you know, such where I come from, we have hundreds of thousands of products that are available on the web, and it's very difficult to measure web traffic. Where you talk about meaningful web traffic or tied to certain, how do you tie the content piece of it that's increasing web traffic?
Okay, so web traffic, the first thing we did was look at what were they looking at. And since Tellabs was a publicly traded company, we peeled off investors because we had a lot of investor traffic. So we backed out all the earnings releases, annual report, blah, blah. We were just looking at traffic that's customer relevant, okay? And that sliced off a big chunk, and then we knew what we were working. And then it was really about getting to those soft conversions. So if we get you interested in a topic and you read 7 seconds on it, can I get you to watch the video? Can I get you to read the blog? Kind of one step at a time. Now, we didn't have wide product lines. We had maybe 4 major product lines. And what I shared with you is one of those 4. So that's a tougher problem. You know, is there a way to approach it by verticals? Because I think the most important thing to the customer is when I go to your site, do I see relevant content? If I see a bunch of stuff that's irrelevant, I think wrong site, I go back to Google. So I would look for a way and maybe even structure your homepage that way. Here's the verticals, and I click into that, and all the content I see under that is relevant.
Still got a few minutes. Here's one more.
I had a question about the magnify the problem
Yeah.
stage and sort of the duality between a problem and an opportunity. If you're targeting an operational buyer, in many cases, the value that they get out of their role is in visibility. If the trains are running on time, if everything's moving like clockwork, my boss isn't in my face, and things are going okay. Did you have any sort of nuance in terms of testing between magnifying a problem, which is the risk of something going wrong, versus the opportunity, which is if you take this chance, put your neck out and champion this change in your operations, you can achieve X% more. So I guess maybe the fear appeal versus the promise of a better future.
Okay, fear works better. I wish it weren't that way, but I think emotionally people are more inclined to act if, you know, nobody's going to stand up in here and scream fire. But if they did, that doorway would be even more crowded than when you came in, right? So fear really works. I think some of the fear has to work at the top level, though. The best piece of content we did, last year Tellabs won one of the Content Marketing Awards here. And the way we did that was with thought-provoking content. We went to the mobile operators in the world and we said, in 3 to 5 years, your business model's broken, you're going to be losing money left and right. And when we came out with this study, which was done by an industry analyst, people looked at us in disbelief, like, you know, nothing we're seeing shows that, blah, blah, blah. They didn't want to hear it, blah, blah, and then they couldn't resist. They absolutely wanted to know everything about that study. How did we reach that conclusion? Well, it's pretty simple. Consumers' mobile usage is going way up. A lot of them are on flat rate plans, so the revenue's level. They reach a point where the cellular companies are losing money left and right. And indeed it was there, and then we had the cure. And the cure was you had to make some changes in your network to lower your costs so that you would continue to be profitable. But the content was so dramatic and so thought-provoking, we got our first call from the chief technology officer at Telefonica, one of the top 10 telecoms in the world. We got our first call from Google. I don't think Google could have Googled and found Tellabs before that. But by putting out a story that big and that fear-inducing, you really want to hit the C-suite with that kind of magnify the problem at an industry level, because it wasn't a problem unique to the company. It was something the whole industry was going to be facing. With other things, it's smaller ways. So magnify the problem for an IT director. We showed IT directors that the downtime on their local area networks in an average company would cost them $5 million a year in lost productivity. And if they switch to another solution, that's down to $50,000. So show them things where the numbers are so big. A lot of times at mid-level, big numbers scare you. Oh my God, I'm going to get blamed for this $5 million, right? And I might be the hero if I give a solution that avoids that $5 million loss. So I think, sad to say, it's easier to sell fear than opportunity.
Do we have time for one more? Oh, I'm getting the 0 thing, so
Okay,
that means no more questions, I suppose.
Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
George. Outstanding
Thanks.
presentation. Appreciate it.